Our guest today is Laura Longcore. Laura retired from Microsoft in 2024 after a distinguished 25 years of service. Laura was a Division I diver and 4-year team captain for Illinois State University. She credits her athletic experiences in shaping her professional views on leadership development. In her 25 years at Microsoft, Laura held leadership roles across marketing, operations, product planning, and sales. As Vice President of Data and Artificial Intelligence, Laura led global teams of business and technical experts. Laura was tapped in 2021 to lead employee skilling, where she re-envisioned a company strategy for 60,000 employees. In her final role as VP of Worldwide Learning, Laura led skilling and training for enterprise customers, partners, academia, and internal employees in the Customer and Partner Solutions organization. On this episode of Elevating Performance, our guest is Laura Longcore. Welcome to the program, Laura. In our introduction, we had a chance to speak about your career history at Microsoft, going from service delivery onto worldwide operations and into your final role as VP of Worldwide Learning. In those final roles where you were responsible for 60,000 souls, were there key learnings that really resonate with you today?
One of the ways that we knew we had to help our employees really focus was on learning about those AI use cases that would be most relevant for the business. We had our employees talk about the way that they were leveraging AI and then turning around and sharing that with their fellow employees. We found that extremely effective. So, for example, in the sales organization, they might talk about how they were using predictive analytics to target sales opportunities more effectively, or they might talk about operational capabilities that were helping them be much more productive themselves, or how they were reaching out to their customers, leveraging AI tools to be much more effective in how they were driving that engagement.
We've shared that we both have athletics in our background. What I found as a coach in youth sports was that when a coach told a player what to do, there is a certain discipline in a team, and that's followed. But when there's a player peer or an upperclassman tells another peer, it doesn't tell them, but they demonstrate the nature of the technique involved. The response and the acceptance is much stronger. The player that's being coached up takes that lesson. Not only does he want to apply it, but he tries to do it even better, and that just brings out the competitive juices. When I heard your last answer, I was thinking that that's likely what you're referring to, is that when divisions or departments talk about the application of AI and how they've used it in their workflows and improvements, that other people heard that and were like, wow, wait a second, I hadn't thought of that. If Susie can do it, if Paul can do it, I can match them. And you know what? I can do it even better. There's some other things that really spurred my thinking that will get me to move needle even further, and then you get group acceptance. Did I understand that properly, Laura, that that's really the reaction that you got from the Microsoft
Yes, definitely.
team?
I'd say twofold. I think it was important that the leaders demonstrated what they were learning as well. So to use your analogy, having the coach demonstrate that they too were embracing AI and that they were thinking about how to share what their experiences were. That made it very real for the employees as well. But then that peer-to-peer sharing, critically important, because it ended up showing the other employees about different use cases that they might not have thought about how they could apply AI. And then what we found for our sellers in particular is then they could turn around and share that with their customers as well. And so it really became this like chain of learning, if you will, from the leaders to the individual employees, and then actually to their customers as well.
You know, when we talk about AI, everyone seems to have an opinion. Media reins in and tells us what's going to happen tomorrow. Sometimes it's the world is crashing, or it's going to be in 20 seconds from now, everything's going to be different. It's all over the map. From your perspective, Laura, when you look at artificial intelligence, how do you apply that, and you're thinking about how leadership and workforces of the future will be developed?
It's a great question, Mark. I think AI is impacting almost everything in the workforce these days. And I think at the net of it, it gets down to the core skills that employees across every industry are going to need to know. They're going to have to be more curious. They're going to have to be focused on asking questions and thinking about how they can go deeper in their questioning. So you think about the right prompts, and that's really all about just asking the right questions. But they also have to be very analytical and critical thinkers. Nowadays, you could ask ChatGPT a question and you might get, 50-50 if it's accurate. And you have to be able to have enough critical thinking to question if the response back actually makes sense. So that critical thinking is going to be very important. And iterative thinking is also another thing that I think is going to be critical. So when I talk about some of these skills, they're going to be inherent in the type of people that will need to be hired in the future, but also training the existing workforce to be thinking completely different, because those are skills that maybe in the past we didn't need as much. And from a leader perspective, they're going to have to really role model that as well. So the willingness to evolve and iterate and experiment and try new technologies and see how it applies to the business and apply that critical thinking in the process.
Laura, as you were speaking, my mind drifted a little bit. I was thinking about youth and then on to high school and university level and into early corporate environment and how the future workforces are going to be trained and developed. This notion that you just draft a prompt really undermines the value of critical thinking, and that's a bit of a concern that you've shared. When it comes to leadership development, my mind immediately goes to sports metaphors. The old saying that if you want to see a championship team, I'm going to tell you they're going to be disciplined, they're going to run, block, and tackle. And no matter what you do, they have all this other greatness that goes around them, but those fundamentals are always there. That applies to leadership. So if leadership has those fundamentals as its core, then it means the tools and other newer methodologies that are around them really are what will dictate how development is going to happen and how those things are going to be evolving. Do these views resonate with you, Laura, in regards to how you see people being developed in the future?
Ongoing learning will be a critical element of any organization. So encouraging that. And as you mentioned, just even with our younger generations coming into the workforce, they've been being taught these skills for many years. So it's now a little bit of our generation that needs to go back and relearn some of these things in the process as well. But you're absolutely right. Not everything is going to change. We take the best of the learnings that we've had along the way, engagement with your teams and showing empathy and caring and being hard-nosed business advocates and making sure you're driving for results. All that still remains, but AI is going to add some new tools into our tool bag. I think the main thing is how can we take best advantage of that to make sure that we're providing the best business outcomes that we can within our organizations.
Laura, on that last point, what we have at our back is a few decades of doing this. And what we've learned is my take is that we're not focusing on the tools. If we focus on the business outcomes, let that drive us, pull us, if you will, and then we'll use the tools and bend them however we have to really achieve that excellence and get us where we go. That's the right prism to do this type of work with. Anything else when, new technology comes at us and we're like, all right, we got to use that. Let that make it be the driver. It doesn't work. Let's outcomes, baby. Let's let that be our North Star.
Couple of things that I took away as absolutes in the learning and development side was all training has to be business relevant. A lot of training programs in the past may have felt like checkbox exercises or things that just had to be done for compliance reasons. But the real reality is it is all about business outcomes and it's about personal development for our employees.
Laura, in your video introduction package, we shared that you were a 4-year Division I athlete, being a diver at Illinois State University. If that wasn't enough, the nuance that really caught my attention was that you were a 4-year team captain. Really rare air. Upperclassman, sure, no problem. But to come in and from your freshman year through your senior year as a computer science major and a team captain, that's just absolutely outstanding. Anyway, are there lessons that you believe that you pulled from your sporting life that affect your views on leadership? That's not only principles of leadership, but how to develop leaders that you can share with us.
I learned so many things through sports when I was growing up. One of the key things that kind of carried with me through my career that in most team sports, there is the individual aspect as well as the team aspect. And same true is true as a business leader. You need to really identify what their core skills are, what are their strengths, what do they bring to the team, what are they going to need to develop. And then you have the team aspect, right? How is the team gelling together? Are we working well together? Are the communications working? Are we achieving the business outcomes that we want to achieve? I saw that very clearly when I was on the swimming and diving team. It really helped drive home this concept of focusing on the individual and what are the skills and strengths needed for that person to perform at their best, as well as the team aspect. And how can we get the synergy together to bring all the skills that are unique to each individual and make 1 + 1 = 3, if you will. And that was just a skill that I think started very early in my sports days and throughout the rest of my career has been very apt.
Laura, you might guess that I love every part of that answer. I had shared with you that I had been a youth football coach for the better part of 3 decades, just a wonderful chapter of my life. And all those years, I may have lost my temper 5 times, and I can't even remember losing my temper. But if you ever wanted to see Coach Cronin jump out of his cleats and go running and screaming, be the 97-pound boy 30 yards away from the play on the other opposite hash mark and loafing it on a play in practice. That's when the whistles would go blowing. I'd be flying down the field right to that boy. And heaven forbid if he said anything along the lines of, Coach, it's way over there, then that was my forum to launch into a program motto that we had was winning is a habit. It was taken from Vince Lombardi's What It Takes to Be Number One. And I'd go into how game days were in practice. It was all the little things, the little techniques, committing to what you were supposed to do by position and going and executing. And that's what turned a 7-yard run into a 30-plus-yard run if you did those little things all over the field. After that little episode, we'd run that exact same play 3, 4, 5 times in a row. Everybody in the field knew exactly what we were doing, and that same boy had to overcome his fears, hit the defensive player in a precise part of his body, so we'd have that cutback lane and whatnot. And when we got to game day, when we'd call that play, and that boy was in position, and he did exactly as though we planned, and we had success out of it, myself and all the other coaches, we'd be jumping up and down, hooray for the 30-plus-yard run. But we would be going right after that boy, and the entire sidelines was just cheering him on, loud enough that his family could hear, and he could really get the reward from what that meant. And I really think for those of you who buy into the sports metaphor of how that relates to business, it's those little things, building your persona that other people know that they can trust you, and that whatever the assignment is, you're going to tackle it with every inch of your soul to try to execute. And if you fail, you're going to fail while daring greatly. It's not because a lack of effort, and that persona that others can trust you is, to me, the essence of leadership. So to tie it into your points, Laura, that's how I see sports and business, and that's the only way in my simple world where 1 + 1 does equal 3.
Yeah, absolutely. I think nothing more exciting as a leader or a coach or captain of a team than watching individuals surpass their own expectations and grow and develop and then contribute to the team and seeing the team come together and winning together and losing together and pulling each other up, right? So lots of analogies from sports world. I think Mark, you and I could probably go on for days just talking about the correlation of sports and leadership and team players and how that all comes together in the business world as well.
If you had a chance to crawl in that proverbial Wayback Machine and meet an earlier version of yourself early in your professional life, is there any advice that you'd give regarding the road ahead and how to prepare?
Always be a lifelong learner. That is what's going to set you up for success. If you are flexible and curious and interested in the world around you and the people around you, I was always curious, wanted to find out different things about different aspects of the business, not just stay in my own lane, but learn about the sales side of the business, the technical side, the operations side, and really make a more well rounded process for me to make decisions. All of that was through learning. And maybe I guess the other thing I'd say is be willing to take more risks because that's about learning as well. I think I was maybe a little risk averse and I would have encouraged myself at a much younger age for that.
Just outstanding advice, Laura. Do you know what I heard? I heard your points about being curious. I'm not sure if you're a fan of Ted
I love
Lasso. Just love that show. And I think we all should have that poster. Be curious, not judgmental. It's just a dynamite mindset and very healthy. Fantastic. Laura, thank you for being with us here on Elevating Performance. Great words of advice and wisdom.